It says we're streaming live now on YouTube.
It does.
You are live. Proceed.
Thank you very much. Okay, calling to order the regular meeting of the Beaches, Parks and Recreation Commission for this Tuesday, April 13th, 2021. We begin the meeting as we always do with reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led this evening by Commissioner John Bander.
Okay, standing up here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, John. Miley, can we have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Ayer.
Here.
Commissioner Dory.
Here.
Commissioner Smith. Commissioner Wolfhard.
Here.
Chair Pro Tem Bandrick.
Here.
Chair Strager.
I am here.
Here's
Okay,
some-
item number 1 on the agenda
Hey,
is
Steve.
special presentations.
Real quick, Charlie just sent me a note saying he'll be on shortly.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you very much for that. Samantha, do we have any special presentations this evening?
We have none this evening.
Okay. Item 2 on the agenda is approval of minutes from our meeting on February 9th, 2021. Hopefully everyone has had an opportunity to review the proposed minutes. The floor is open for any motions to approve or to modify as needed.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Second on that?
I'll second it.
Okay, John Dory seconds it. Any discussion on the minutes? Okay, and again, as always with this Zoom format, I will ask everyone to indicate affirmance on a vote by, you can say yay if you like or aye, but also raise your hand so that Miley can get a clear vision of who is voting in affirmation of it. So all in favor of the motion to approve the minutes as written, please indicate by raising your hand.
Aye.
Saying aye if you like, that's fine too. Okay, Miley, you got that? 5? Okay. Item 3 on the agenda, current community activities and events. Samantha, do you have a report for us on that?
I have nothing this evening to share.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, and the record should reflect that Charlie Smith has now joined us. Hello, Charlie, thank you. Okay, Charlie, just to bring you up to speed, we are now up to item 4 on the agenda. And so that is old business dog access on city beaches and parks, although I think specifically we're talking more about beaches tonight, but this is a report from Samantha, and go ahead and let you take it away, Samantha.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, commissioners. Samantha Wiley, Recreation Manager. Before you this evening is a report coming back to the commission based on council's guidance to review dog access on our beaches and also potentially reviewing the expansion of dog access within our parks. And the parks is really looking at off-leash access. The commission will remember that in our meeting in February, we did discuss expanding off-leash dog access through the upcoming master plan, site-specific master plan updates. So we intend to do so. So as Chair Strager did mention, the intent of this evening is to also focus a little bit more on dogs. I want to provide a couple of brief details. The contents of the staff report give some highlighted areas within the discussion pertaining to what council has asked the commission to particularly review. And should the commission look to move forward on allowing or some type of program for dogs on the beach, they are also looking for a specific location to recommend to the council. So some recaps. Currently, the animal shelter, the San Clemente Animal Shelter, has stated that they average about 6,500 dog licenses in the city of San Clemente annually. That's over the past 5 years. That typically can vary anywhere from the low end of 6,200 to the high end of 7,600. I do also want to share for the commission that marine safety operations, that's a very big component to this. Marine safety operations vary seasonally, but for the most part, staff are always on duty beginning at 8 a.m. During the winter hours, when it's a little bit more sparse, they're usually on until 5 p.m. All other times during the year, so spring, summer, and fall, they typically run about 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. or sunset, whenever that lands. North Beach in particular, they do staff on the weekends, typically beginning in spring break, because that's when the influx of crowds tends to come into town. And then they staff North Beach daily, Memorial Day to Labor Day. Off-season staffing typically fluctuates with the weather. As our marine safety captain monitors the weather, he can see that if it's going to be a beautiful day out, he knows that there's going to be a lot of people coming to the beaches. So he staffs accordingly to make sure that our beaches are covered properly. The other agency review component, all of that is really highlighted. This is kind of a rollover from our February meeting. In attachment 1, all of those details are there from surrounding comparable agencies as well. And then I think to recap it, staff is seeking to take a recommendation to council that provides guidance on whether dogs should be allowed on the beach, and if so, what beach should be considered to allow access for, and then what are those operations and what does that program look like over time? Should there be parameters and rules that are set forth? One of the examples is, should commission consider a year-round program, a seasonal program, portions of the beach? There's a lot of different options, as I know this commission is aware of. And with that, I will conclude my report, and I do know we have a number of public comments as well.
I think it makes, thank you, Samantha. I think it makes the most sense for us to begin with public comments. I know that I think last time Miley and Samantha alternated on reading the public comments. I don't know what the plan is this evening. How many public comments do we have?
Miley, I want to say it's around 18 up to 20 at this point, somewhere between there.
Okay. So if I may, just before we start reading the public comments, I just want to make it clear to everyone. So I don't know how many of you actually listened in to the city council meeting when this matter was teed up for us. It seems like there might have been a disagreement about the scope of what was to be sent to us, and I don't know how that is ultimately to be resolved. On the one hand, it appeared as though the motion was made to have us assume a pilot program and to recommend a location. And then if you look at the current state of the minutes, it looks as though we're being asked to decide whether to do a pilot program, and if so, where. Reasonable minds differ on the precise scope of what we're being asked to do. For our purposes, you should feel comfortable addressing both sides, which is, 1, should there be a pilot program? And 2, if so, where should it be? Understanding, of course, that the first question might be answered very differently with city council than what we would ultimately recommend anyway. So with that, anybody have any questions on the scope of what we're doing here? Okay. So
Chris Rager, if I may, I just want to also let the commission know that I do have Cynthia Mallett on the call as well. She's our environmental program supervisor, and she can speak to, there's an attachment actually that she presented to the Coastal Advisory Committee that you'll probably have more questions on later on as well.
Perfect. With Cynthia's assent, we're going to have the public comments go first, and then we can just roundtable within ourselves and ask all the questions we have. Richard?
Samantha, have we seen that report from Cynthia? I didn't see that in the attachments.
Yes, that's going to be.
It was?
It's at the very back, Richard.
It's attachment 3.
It's a 3-page report. It's got the really cool overhead map of the beaches attached to it to show the different areas where sampling takes place. We'll get to that. We'll
Oh, I
let
did see that.
Cynthia,
I did see that.
yeah, we'll let Cynthia discuss her
Okay.
report as well when we get there.
Okay.
But, okay, so Miley, Samantha, the floor is yours for reading public comments.
Okay, the first comment is from Ellie, no last name provided. It would be very beneficial to deem some part of the beach as a dog beach so that dog owners can have a place to go. Everyone brings their dogs anyway, so might as well have a certain part be a dog beach so that people who don't want to be around dogs can go to other areas.
Samantha, you're on mute.
Thank you. The next comment is Gloria Sinclair. As a resident and dog owner living in San Clemente, please give us, the dog owners and our dogs, a chances have never had to try a temporary dog beach option, please.
Okay, the next is from Christine M. Lampert. I'm writing to ask that you consider creating a dog beach in San Clemente. I am one of the many responsible dog owners here in town. I have lived in San Clemente since 1975 and have always had a dog. We are frequent San Clemente Trail dog walkers, and we also spend lots of time on Trail 1 at San Onofre State Beach with our dog Ava. Before Ava, we had Skylar, Brandy, Willie, Hannah, Susie, and Bo, all rescued dogs, all amazing dogs. Skylar even flew around the world and lived in Hong Kong with us for 3 years. I speak for all of us responsible dog owners. I even promised to clean up after irresponsible dog owners, and I hope there are none, but just in case, I will jump in and clean up after them. San Clemente is a magical place, and we are all so lucky to call it home. I hope you consider giving us a dog beach. Thank you very much, Christine M. Lampert.
The next comment is from Brian Baker. Good evening. Thank you for allowing us to comment on dog access to our city's parks and beaches. I would like to voice my support for expanded access to our beaches and an increased number of off-leash dog parks. The proposed beach locations are all acceptable. I think North Beach is an ideal location. These beaches would generate traffic for local businesses on an underutilized beach in an area needed an economic stimulus. As a dog owner, I would accept if there were allowed times during the less busy hours and no access during peak times at some locations, but having at least one full-time designed dog beach would be ideal. The city and lifeguards should have zero tolerance when it comes to people not picking up their waste. The city should impose heavy fines and require community service to multiple offenders. Our parks have underutilized space that could be sectioned off for dog parks. The San Clemente Dog Park is not well kept and is in need of renovation. An investment into artificial turf would be advisable in parks that are overcrowded and cannot maintain their natural turf. Model cities like Carmel, California, lean into their citizens and visitors with dog-friendly rules and policies. They are very successful in maintaining a clean, safe community and destination. If expanded access is granted, our commission should communicate and learn from their experience. Thank you for considering expanded access to canine family members. Commissioned surveys from our own city council indicate it is a top priority to its citizens and long overdue.
The next is from Emily Corbett. Well-behaved leash dogs provide a welcoming environment to SC's beaches in comparison to loud music, vandalism, and littering, which are the real nuisances. The success of dog beaches prove that dogs can have a safe, fun time at the beach. Dangers lurk everywhere and not just on beaches. Hot sand is the same as hot gravel in the city, yet that is allowed. I support signs for the public to warn them about the safety measures they should take with their dogs at the beach. I highly support this, but completely banning dogs is unnecessary. From a financial perspective, San Clemente's welcoming nature for canine friends will provide the boost in tourism that our city's small businesses so desperately need. If you are still on the fence, perhaps consider a trial period.
Dina Jadala. I would like to add my voice to those of us who wish that dogs are allowed on San Clemente beaches as well as parks. My husband and I live in San Clemente, own a home here, and pay property taxes like other residents of this city. Just as families with children have the right to use parks and beaches, We are among the thousands of dog owners who would enjoy the right to have access to these city amenities. We feel that beaches and parks ought to be accessible for our dogs. The vast majority of dog owners are responsible people who pick up after their pets and raise friendly and well-socialized dogs. We have lived in this and other coastal cities in California, including Newport Beach, Laguna Beach, and San Diego, all of which allow dogs on beaches and at parks without any major problems. We strongly urge you to please amend the laws that restrict our access to beaches and parks. Thank you for your time and attention.
The next is from Raymond Eugene Flood. Please vote to allow dogs to have access to the beaches and parks. My wife and I own a home and live in San Clemente. As responsible taxpayers in the city, we feel that the city's excessive restrictions on pet access to beaches and parks is a form of discrimination against us. We do not have children, but we do have one dog. We feel that we too should have the right to use these city amenities. Most dog owners are responsible people who pick up after their pets and raise friendly and well-socialized dogs. We have lived in Newport Beach, Del Mar, and La Jolla in San Diego. These cities and many others allow pets on beaches and at parks with some regulations regarding time of day and or seasonal access. In this way, there is at least some attempt to balance the rights of the residents who have pets with others who have children. We strongly urge you to kindly amend the laws that restrict our access to beaches and parks. Thank you for your time and attention.
Our next comment is from Hector Hernandez. Having a dog beach in San Clemente has been brought up many times in the past. There are reasons the residents do not want a dog beach. Number one, there is not enough sand beach in San Clemente to accommodate human beachgoers, especially now that Ladera Ranch and Rancho Mission Viejo have claimed San Clemente beaches as a major selling point, causing overcrowding. Number two, no one wants to see dogs defecate or urinate on our beaches. Number three, no one wants to walk, sit, or lay on a dog's urine or have their children play on it. Number four, not all dog owners are responsible. Those who are not will leave their dog's excrement and not pick it up, letting the tide take it to the sea. They will immediately unleash their dogs, regardless of the dog's possible threat to children or adults. The Beach Road parking lot at Capo Beach is an excellent example of why there should not be a dog beach in San Clemente.
The next is from Bill Krudinger. With San Clemente beaches regularly showing up on the beach bummer list as some of the most bacteria-infested beaches in the state, allowing dogs is an utterly backwards and irresponsible idea. If residents who own dogs are unsatisfied with the city's 2 dog parks, those facilities should be improved rather than taking beach space away from surfers, swimmers, and other beachgoers, while putting additional strain on already severely stressed ecosystems. I urge the BPRC to advise the City Council to abandon the idea of dogs on the beach and to instead invest in the city's dog parks.
Next comment is from Chris, no last name. I'm the second generation of Marine Corps family who has lived in Southwest San Clemente since the early 70s, with much of that time with canine companions. Working dog breeds which weigh 60 pounds or more and need places to run off leash without the need to drive miles to get there. The so-called dirty, zero grass, half-acre dog park near the skateboard park is too far away and unacceptably. The dog beach at Sano is great and my boxer loves the ocean, but if you don't have the $200 annual pass, you need to pay $15 every time you enter. We taxpayers insist on more acceptable venues where our dogs can run off leash and the beach is perfect. It's there, you don't have to build it. It's wide open, fresh breezes, and you can't beat the views. And it's a 10-minute walk from home. Your argument and concerns are that some people don't pick up after their dogs. I agree. Then you need to make the fine so outrageous that no one will comply, but people still litter on our beaches, the trash cans are overflowing, and the homeless still defecate on our streets. So do something about that too. But you have done very little that I have witnessed to correct these concerns. We taxpayers, dog owners, and San Clemente residents require more acceptable locations for our dogs to run while supervised and under control, whether the dogs are well trained or on an e-collar system or running with no other beachgoers in sight, the dog owner assumes 100% liability if their dog attacks someone or something. The city will not be liable. Thank you for your time. Semper Fi, Chris.
Next is from Megan Rogers. Hello there. My name is Megan and I am a local San Clemente resident. I actually reside in the Pier Bowl area. I asked the council for at least a try of having a dog beach. I think this would be an incredible thing for our city, and every actual San Clemente resident I have talked to agrees. The towns that have succeeded in having dog beaches are all thriving. I know for myself and my husband, we are constantly taking our dog to Del Mar Dog Beach. We end up going to lunch and shop in the city of Del Mar. How amazing would it be to drive business to our local San Clemente businesses, especially after the year we have had. After talks and some research, I believe Mariposa would be an outstanding location for a dog beach. I am down at the sand every day and I rarely see people down there due to the tides. People would need to park at either Pier or Linda Lane, which are both paid parking, which means more money for the city. The city of Avila also has dog-friendly beaches, and it is one of the most cleanest, cute towns. I saw all the locals there letting their dogs play on the beach while they picked up trash. Most dog owners that take the time out of their day to let their dog play at the beach are responsible enough to pick up after them. This town truly loves dogs, and I please ask you to consider at least a trial for a dog beach. Thank you, Megan and Forrest, my dog.
The next comment is from Wendy Morris. I am against allowing dogs on any beach in San Clemente. Most pet owners are responsible, but there are some that are not. I see evidence of this fact regularly when I walk my neighborhood and the beach trail. Even if owners clean up after their pet, there is still some left on the dirt or sand, and some remnants will end up in the water. This will degrade our water quality. We already have problems with water quality that we can't correct. Also, I take my young grandkids to our beaches where they love to play in the sand and quite regularly get it on their faces, in their noses and mouths. Who is more important here, young kids or dogs? Will dogs be allowed off leash? That presents another problem with safety. How will enforcement will be handled? The lifeguards will not be able to enforce dog rules. They are busy watching our waters. Most people think that if a beach is in San Clemente, that it is a city beach. The state beaches of Calafia and Riviera will not allow dogs. Who will educate the public so that everyone knows they are not allowed at these places? Recently, I was approached by a dog off leash at Calafia that was ready to jump on me. The owner said it was okay, that he was a local and new dogs were allowed on that beach.
The next is from Helen McHugh. BP&R commissioners, I strongly oppose dogs on the beach as a trial program and any future programs. Before you vote on this proposal, I know you are aware San Clemente is a bird sanctuary and we have a strong clean ocean or clean water program. We have very little beach for beach goers as it is, and you want to set aside a special place for dogs. 204, it is a well-known surf spot, and this creates excess parking problems to the neighborhood as is. All dog owners are not responsible. Just look at the dog mess on the trail and the entrances to the beach. Even if the dog mess is picked up, bacteria, disease, and germs still exist in the soil. Hookworm and E. coli will close our beaches if detected. The Clean Ocean Program brochure states pet waste is a source of bacteria found in the ocean. Are you going to go against the city's mandate? Regional and state water boards gave the city a directive to significantly reduce bacteria. In light of the fact that dog waste can contribute to bacteria pollution in sand and in the water, it would be unwise to allow dogs on the beach. What if a dog bits a child or adult? Is the city liable? How are you going to prevent dogs from leaving the designated area? Will it be the lifeguard's job to chase them down and remove them? Number one priority for the lifeguard is to watch the water and saves lives. Don't add watching dogs to their already important job of life saving. Since San Clemente is a bird sanctuary, what will happen when the dogs chase the birds in and out of the water? Are the owners cited? Once people know that dogs are allowed on the beach, they will come. The area you suggested does not have adequate parking as it is. Free parking instead of paying for parking at North Beach will inundate the area. Homeowners and renters will be at a disadvantage. When the surf is up, parking becomes impossible, and now you want to exacerbate the parking problem by having people bring their dogs to the beach. Would you like to have this parking problem in your neighborhood and in front of your house? Enforcement of dogs off leashes and in the wrong areas will be very difficult. Police do not want to get their shoes wet. If a citation is issued and the officer has to go to court, it takes time and money from the city. Lifeguards should not enforce the dog regulations. No dogs on the beach. The city's motto is to maintain a healthy and safe atmosphere in which to live, work, and play. You are not making a safe environment by having dogs running on the beach. The beach is supposed to be a tranquil and lovely space. Do not change it. No dogs on the beach. Helen McHugh.
Our next comment is from Emma Freer. I would like to first take this opportunity to thank the City Council for opening this matter to the community. It shows a great understanding of the people who live in the city and the needs and wants they have. I sincerely appreciate the opportunity to have dogs on the beach considered. I, along with all other members of this community, have fallen in love with this city. Of course, the beaches are a huge part of what we love about San Clemente. They should be treated with love and respect. I believe the opportunity to allow dogs on the beach opens the doors for further enjoyment, community bonding, and care of our beaches. I understand there is some concern of trash left by dogs. I have found humans have been a huge problem driving trash, not animals. Anything left behind by a dog is natural. The glass, plastic, and waste so many people leave on our beaches is a much bigger issue. I think there are many options on the table to make this a shared compromise for the community. Dog hours before 9 a.m. and after 6 p.m. Select sections of the beach where dogs are free to play. Dog pass, where community members register with the city and pay a fee to help with extra cleaning of the beaches, so only locals can take advantage of these rules, etc. I hope that there can be a compromise found rather than a rule. Something else I fell in love with about San Clemente is the relaxed, happy nature of the community. Strict rules about dogs is not what San Clemente represents. Dogs are a member of our family. The opportunity to share our love for the beach with our best friend, our companion, is hugely important to making all feel safe and welcome here in San Clemente. I thank you so much for your time and consideration.
The next is from Kathleen Ferry. I don't believe the city should be considering dogs on beach, period. It's common sense the possible liabilities that could occur. In addition, our beaches are already spoiled by high levels of bacteria and trash. There are roaming hills, green belts, pathways, and dog parks provided for dog owners to enjoy at the cost of the taxpayers. Cigarettes/smoking on beaches were banned, right? So it appears that the council is going backwards in their thinking. Where is our sense of pride and responsibility going? We have an obligation to preserve and keep our beaches in the most pristine condition as possible.
Our next comment is from Kate Dom. In an ideal world, dogs would be allowed on all beaches so that everyone could run, jump, and play together. However, we live in Southern California with over 23 million other people. The beaches are overcrowded on almost every weekend and most afternoons as well. Our beach waters test as some of the most polluted in California, and it is not infrequent that there must be postings warning that the coliform count is too high to swim safely. Surfers frequently report earaches and illness, which they attribute to the pollution. It simply is not hygienically practical to add dogs to the mix. Even if every dog owner were responsible and cleaned up after their dog, how does one eradicate the urine in the sand? I already picked up lots of wrappers, food, plastic, etc. from the beach on my walks. This highlights the fact that there are many irresponsible people that use the beach. We will be compounding the problem exponentially by allowing dogs who cannot clean up after themselves on the beach. I urge you to keep the beaches usable for humans, which should be our higher priority by keeping dogs off of the beaches.
Next is from David K. While I acknowledge that most dog owners are respectful and responsible, the few that aren't have a huge impact on our community and our quality of life. Please take a walk on the beach trail and see for yourself. Most do respect the leash laws and do pick up after their animal, but many don't. Allowing dogs on our beaches is a bad idea for many reasons. Doing so will present issues relating to environmental, water quality, pollution/feces, public health, safety, dog fights, dog attacks, and resulting city liability, and the deterioration of having an enjoyable family day at the beach, uncontrolled dogs running over and around people. The city can attempt to mitigate these issues by restricting hours or requiring leashes, but you can be sure that each of these issues will surface and will need to be addressed. Perhaps each of these issues should be addressed now before putting us all in jeopardy. This is my home break. I am concerned that if allowing dogs on the beach is implemented, the experience of going to the beach in San Clemente will never be the same. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. As a former dog owner many times over, I enjoy dogs and want them and their owners to be happy, but this isn't the answer.
Our next comment is from Brett Froelich. San Clemente is a town full of dogs and dog lovers, yet our dogs have no places to run free and play except the dirt cages near La Plata. Similar cities such as Carlsbad and Oceanside have off-leash areas in their parks, and Huntington Beach has an off-leash dog beach. Our dogs and residents deserve the same. Dogs need a much wider variety of exercise than just walking on a leash. They need dedicated places throughout the city to run, play, fetch, and socialize. Many of our residents live in apartments and have no place for their dogs to play. We have lots of parks and green belts, part of which should be made available. For far too long, the city council has had our dogs locked down and has failed to provide the off-leash resources our residents deserve. This needs to change.
And the last comment is from Kelly Romer. We are 100% in support of Dog Beach. Off leash, even better.
Steve, you're on mute.
Okay, thank you for that. So as is typically our history on this commission, we usually adopt the last public comment as our ruling. So I'm just kidding. Samantha looks so serious. Okay, so Cynthia, are you with us?
Yes, I am here.
Dear Cynthia, okay. Would you kindly introduce yourself to the commissioners and then share with us just briefly about what you do for the city and the impetus behind this report you prepared?
Yes, I am the environmental program supervisor, so I manage the stormwater and the solid waste and recycling programs. I included a memo to the Coastal Advisory Committee, who does view on a monthly basis or whenever they hold meetings, bacteria reports related to water quality sampling in the Pacific Ocean shoreline. So we provide that on a monthly basis to them. The report that Samantha provided with the packet for this item starts, I believe, on page 10, and it does show the different sampling locations in the city where water quality samples are taken. The only beach that it does not show is Poche Beach, which is a county beach. So that is not a city beach. So we didn't include that in the maps that are in that memo to you folks. So I can answer any questions that you would like in regards to water quality.
Thank you, Cynthia. When you do the sampling, I gather that the sampling is part of compliance with AB 411, which is testing stormwater and surface runoff. Is that correct?
Yeah, AB 411 is specifically sampling the Pacific Ocean shoreline, not necessarily the stormwater runoff. We do have requirements to sample stormwater runoff in our stormwater permit, but there are multiple agencies that are required to sample the ocean, including SACWA, which is South Orange County Wastewater Authority, because they have the sewage discharge pipe out into the ocean. They're required to do some sampling. And then AB 411 required municipalities along the coast to sample the Pacific Ocean shoreline where either a storm drain or a creek enters the ocean. So all of those sampling locations for San Clemente are shown in those maps. Samplers collect water at about ankle to knee height. So they go out into the shoreline, wherever it's at that level, they will do a grab sample, put it on ice, and take it over to a lab. And we pool our money between the different coastal cities and the South Orange County Wastewater Authority to have those samples collected and analyzed for fecal indicator bacteria.
Okay, and do we do that testing year round? Because I know, I happen to know, and some other people might know this as well, that AB 411 requires testing to occur between April 1 and October 31st. So do we also test in November, December, January, February, March?
Yes, we do test throughout the year on a weekly basis. If there is rain, if there's a rain event, 72 hours before or after a rain event, water quality samples are not collected. Our stormwater permit now requires us to collect the shoreline samples even during the wet season, but during dry weather outside of 72 hours of a rain event.
Okay, and have you tested for canine genetic markers for any particular length of time or at all of the sample sites? Can you tell us a little bit about that aspect?
Yes, so there is the ability, there's a library of different DNA markers that can be tested for at a laboratory. Certain labs have different markers. You can test for bovine, like cattle. You can test for canine. You can test for human. At the pier, we did have bacteria exceedances that started in 2015 when sampling right underneath the pier began. And ever since that sampling began in 2015 underneath the pier, the bacteria exceedances have been excessive. So we wanted to determine what the sources were of those bacteria exceedances. So we did, in 2016, there was a study that did collect canine and avian markers, which is for birds. And that study did show one hit for canine. Then we initiated another study in 2019, and we tested that time, and that study is still going. That should be ending in June, and John Dory, he is on the Stakeholder Advisory Committee for that particular study. That study collected human, canine, and avian markers, and for that study, no canine markers were found in the pier in that study. So otherwise, no other DNA markers have been collected at the other beach segment, just the fecal indicator bacteria.
Okay, so Cynthia, if you were to assume, just for present purposes, that a section of the public beach were open for dog access, limited days, limited hours, what have you, does the city have baseline information on bacteria levels up to, let's say, day one, and then from day one forward, we could test that same area for canine markers, so we can have some actual data about how much bacteria canines are adding into the water if we were to go this route?
So yes, you could have historical data. Now, to do the DNA marker analysis costs about $500 a sample. So it's, whereas the fecal indicator bacteria sample analysis is about $120 per sample. So if you want to implement the any type of DNA marker analysis, it's going to cost about $500 a sample. And that, Yeah, so it is quite expensive, but it could happen. Now, the Clean Ocean Fee, which has been funding the stormwater program here at the city of San Clemente since 2003, that property-based tax or fee has sunset. So we are really trying to sharpen our pencil on our expenditures right now so that before we actually go out to the property owners to see if they would support the fee again. And that probably won't be until fall or next year before we present that to the property owners.
So the clean water fee, that was, some of that money went to this testing that we're talking about. It didn't just go to the stormwater and sewage treatment and that kind of thing.
Yeah, the Clean Ocean Fee goes toward multiple programs, many of them required, which is the water quality monitoring, not only in the Pacific Ocean shoreline, but as well as there is the storm drain monitoring. We also pay for inspections of commercial, industrial businesses, municipal facilities. We conduct education outreach, go into schools to present information to them. We also fund the repair of storm drain catch basins and lines. We also pay for street sweeping through that Clean Ocean Fee. So there's multiple programs that it does fund.
I can keep going, but I feel like it's only fair just to let some others jump in here if anybody else has any questions for Cynthia. Can you indicate by raising your hand anybody who has any questions for Cynthia? Richard?
I have one question. Cynthia, if you're monitoring water quality in several different places in San Clemente, would that also be driven by bacteria that's washed down from the streets of San Clemente into the ocean from miles away?
That's correct. The discharges from the storm drain system and the creeks are usually assumed to be the contributors to the ocean pollution. And now for San Clemente specifically, there are no upstream cities. So all the pollution that's coming down into the shoreline is from San Clemente only. There are some other areas in the county where there's other cities upstream of them where that pollution could be generated. Now, on our peer study, we have identified that the birds, the pigeons roosting underneath the pier were definitely the culprits for the bacteria exceedances, definitely contributing to that. Since we installed the netting there, the bacteria exceedances, we haven't seen any bacteria exceedances at that location since December of last year.
I just want to make sure that I understand your statement. You're not seeing any canine markers in the sampling that you're taking, or are you not taking those canine markers?
We are not testing for those canine markers at the 11 beach segments, only at the pier as part of that particular study. So I cannot tell you if there's canine in there or not, because it's very expensive to do.
Okay, and with respect to the cost and the ability to, as Steve says, drive a baseline, could you establish a test, let's say to the north of North Beach, one in, let's say, the center of the Dog Beach, and one to the south, maybe at Mariposa or Linda Lane, that close together? Would there be a differentiation that close together? And what would the cost be?
So if you really wanted to do it properly, we sample once a week. You could collect samples. That would be, if you did 4 beaches, that would be $2,000. $2,000 per week, right, for 4 samples. For the pier, if we saw exceedances of fecal indicator bacteria, we're also collecting avian as well as at Pochi. We're paying for the extra cost of that to see if the avian at Pochi Beach is contributing. So it would be quite expensive in order to implement that. Now, your question about whether a comparison between the beaches, you can't really tell if the bacteria is moving upstream or downstream for sure. That you can look at different currents and do some analysis in that respect. I'm not sure if that was part of your question, though.
it seems to me that it would be difficult to establish that given the longshore currents and the narrowness. So we're talking about less than a quarter mile of really measuring the impact of dog feces on the beach is what I'm getting at. So you've answered my question. I appreciate that.
You bet.
Okay, thank you, Richard. Anybody else have any other questions for Cynthia? If so, please indicate by raising your hand. John Dory?
Yeah, Cynthia, has anyone reached out to people like Carmel and what have you that have had dogs, or even down in San Diego at Dog Beach, that have dogs running up and down and check and to see what happens to their bacteria levels on testing? I'm sure they must test from time to time, and just reaching out to someone who does what you do there and see what results they have, because it seems to me that that would be an indicator for us as to what we might see down here.
Yes, I did speak to Del Mar, City of Del Mar, as well as San Diego stormwater managers for those two cities. They do not test for canine. I have not gone to look to analyze or to look at their fecal indicator bacteria to see if there's exceedances. And even if there were, since there isn't any canine data collected at those beaches, I couldn't make any correlation on whether canine is contributing to the exceedances. Del Mar, I've been to that beach before with the dog beach, but I don't know that they are allowed to actually go out in the ocean shoreline where they actually collect the samples. That dog beach is located more close to the lagoon or the area of that discharge for San Diego River. Now, Ocean Beach, which does have the dog beach at the mouth of the San Diego River, I don't know if they are actually allowed to go into the water. Did Dog Beach 24-hour off leash? Samantha has that in her report there that you have previously seen. So at Dog Beach and Ocean Beach, they do have a 24-hour off leash. But I don't know about their indicator bacteria water quality objective exceedances.
And similar to what the question we just asked, have we learned anything at around the pier as to how far bacteria travels? Have we learned anything from all of the money that we've spent there as to whether or not something happening at one area will travel 200 yards, 300 yards, 400 yards? Has any analysis been done along that line, so we can see that if we do something in one area, will it have an effect on another area of our beaches? So there's this trickle down the beach. And so there is this situation where we allow it at one location, but it's affecting another as well, where most people go there because they know they're not going to be laying down on dog feces or urine. And yet when they go into the water, there is bacteria from upstream.
So for that pier study, which was interesting, prior to 2015, the pier was sampled 100 feet north and 100 feet south of the discharge of the storm drain, which is basically the north end of the restaurant and the south end of the restaurant. And then, and prior to that, the fecal indicator bacteria met water quality objectives most of the time. Once they started sampling under the pier, right at the discharge point, that's when those exceedances were so prevalent. And so part of this pier bacteria study, the consultant is analyzing when the longshore current, if it's going up coast or down coast, to look at the data from the Pier 0, which is where the storm drain discharges, and the north and the south sampling points. And there is some indication that if there is the bacteria at the point 0, And if the longshore current is moving up coast, that yes, that can impact the sampling point 100 feet north and vice versa, 100 feet south. Now, for the Orange County Healthcare Agency, sometimes we'll have seen those posting advisories go even 450 feet north of the marine safety tower, all the way up to the trailhead kind of there along the coast. But it's not that they're sampling there, it's just that the Orange County Healthcare Agency has a protocol on how far they're going to post the exceedances depending on how many samples exceed and if those samples exceed on multiple weeks at a time. So that's the only indication I have on the longshore current going up coast, down coast, that it could impact sites 100 feet north and south. We do have to meet dry weather water quality objectives by April 4th, which just passed. If we, at any of our 11 sampling locations, if we have any exceedances of bacteria water quality objectives, we could be fined up to $10,000 per day by the Regional Water Quality Control Board. So we're most concerned from the Clean Ocean Program perspective for the Pier, North Beach, and Poche, because those are the 3 beach segments that have exceeded in the last year. Now, they've been meeting water quality objectives. We have not exceeded anything since April 4th, which is great. But if they do, there could be some enforcement actions by the regional board.
So from your understanding of all that you've learned through the peer studies and all the markers that you've looked at, everything you've looked at up and down the coast, and the phone calls you made to other people, is the city taking on a financial risk for allowing dogs on the beach? I just need to ask the question. Because of the $10,000 a day if you exceed a certain amount, by inviting dogs onto the beach, is there some risk here, and can that be assessed?
Well, there could be a risk. Of course, we're not sampling for canines, so if it does exceed and there is a dog beach established at a particular beach segment, we wouldn't know if the dogs are actually contributing to the bacteria exceedances unless we start paying for that additional cost to analyze the canine data. And I think some of it depends on if the dogs go in the water or not. That is something to be aware of. Dogs running up and down on the beach, because we have the beach trail. We have dogs walking along the beach, and it doesn't appear that, yes, there are people who don't pick up after their dog, that feces or DNA marker is not making it to the shoreline. But if you allow dogs to go in the water, that may be another concern. And because salt water affects dogs' digestive tract, and it may cause them to defecate pretty quickly, and then now it's in the shoreline, and can the owner or caretaker collect that dog feces right away before the ocean takes it away? It is a concern, something to be considered when establishing a dog beach. Do you allow them in the water, or do you not allow them in the water?
Don, any further questions for Cynthia? I'm going to take that as a no. Okay. Anybody else have any questions for Cynthia? So please indicate with your hand so that I can see you. Cynthia, I think you're calling in on a phone call. We're on a video, so we can all see each other, which is why I'm having that strange discussion with everyone, in case you're curious.
Nope, that's okay. I understand.
Okay, so I do have a question for you. And I understand we have 3 areas that are being watched, I guess, for lack of a better description, 3 beaches that are being watched more closely than the other beaches because of historical bacterial issues. Poche, North Beach, and under the pier. Did I state that correctly?
That's correct.
So if you were tasked, if somebody told you there is going to be a pilot program in which dogs are going to be allowed to run on the beach, which of course might involve dogs going into the water line because it would be difficult to keep that from occurring. Is there a beach or an area that you feel would be best suited for that in terms of historical bacterial information, ability to test, anything that you might think of that would make the most sense if you were forced to put one down somewhere?
I cannot recommend a particular beach segment. I would be concerned about the 3 beach segments that in the last year have exceeded water quality objectives, because introducing a potential other bacteria source is probably not, it would be of concern to me. But then introducing to another beach segment that's been meeting water quality objectives for many years, that could be an issue as well. So it just depends if you allow the dogs access to the water. And I totally understand, because I know there's certain dog breeds that just love that water, and it's so much fun for them. And, you know, the caretakers and owners watching them play around in the water. So it's trying to balance that interest along with protecting public health, because that is the priority for the fecal indicator bacteria monitoring, is to determine if the beach water is protective of public health.
Right, and Cynthia, you hit on a really good point. We're not clear whether people want to take a dog on the beach on leash. It's not, when we get public comments, it's usually you don't want them there at all, or we want them there because they need to run free. So it seems like it's off leash or not at all, not that people want their dogs on leash on the beach. That's part of the things that we need to wrestle with. I saw some more hands. Charlie, you had a hand up? Is this a question for Cynthia?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Hey, Cynthia, it's Charlie Smith. Hey, maybe this question's a little off the wall, but I'm just trying to get at, like, when does the sort of heightened testing, heightened concern around North Beach, the pier, and Poche sunset, right? So you're saying going back to basically this time last year, we've been essentially in the clear on the 3 tests that we do, and every time I've ever looked at the data, it seems like we're in good place. When does that heightened concern, heightened awareness sort of subside with respect to those 3 different beaches? Or does it never?
I don't think it ever. I mean, we're going to have to sample all of these beach segments in perpetuity, is my understanding. We also have a wet weather requirement that's April 4th, 2031, where we're going to have to sample each of these beach segments when it rains, and we're going to have to meet certain water quality objectives for that. So we will be definitely testing the dry weather component in perpetuity to make sure it's protective of public health. So it's heightened throughout the year, because now even during the winter season, it's still dry, as you know. Obviously our rain events, even in the winter, can be days and weeks in between. So we're going to have to sample at least on a weekly basis throughout the year, and as well as when it starts to rain. But that's a different water quality objective when it is raining. But dry weather, if we have even one exceedance, we could be subject to enforcement. I don't know if that answers your question. Does that help?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
For the record, Charlie was smiling, but again, you can't see that because he's calling.
Sorry, it was unrelated.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? John Dory.
Yeah, just a clarification, and I think it was clarified in the last comment by Charlie, and that was the 3 areas that we've had problems in the past are Poche, North Beach, and the pier. Is that correct? And the rest of them seem to have been in good shape, consistently in good shape over the years.
Yes. Now, in 2010 is when the bacteria total maximum daily load was established, and that's mentioned in my memo. And based on water quality sampling at all 11 of those beach segments back in 2010, all those beaches were exceeding water quality objectives for bacteria. So that's why all 11 of those were placed on the bacteria TMDL. So since 2010, 8 of those 11 beach segments have come into compliance. Now, Trafalgar Canyon has had some exceedances on occasion in the last couple of years. But for the most part, all the other beaches have been compliant except for Pier, North Beach, and Poche.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other commissioners have any more questions for Cynthia? And just so you know, I'm probably going to allow her to leave the meeting once we're done with questions. And so if something comes up later, you may not have she's welcome to stay. But like most people, they don't want to hang out longer than they have to in a city meeting, so she might leave. So
I'll stay. I'm available till the agenda item is finished. That is not a problem.
All right, Cynthia's going to hang out. You guys are not under pressure to come up with your questions now. Okay, so Cynthia, thank you. That was incredibly informative and helpful. And
You're welcome.
So, commissioners, as I mentioned when we started this discussion, our call, and I'm just looking at the minutes from the city council meeting, which have not yet been confirmed, but we were asked to assess 7 issues. I'll just read them for you in case those of you don't have access to the minutes for that meeting. The 7 issues are: number 1, efficacy of a dog beach; number 2, recommended location for a 1-year test program; number 3, fiscal impact; number 4, liability issues; number 5, water quality issues; 6 is health and safety issues; and number 7 is the broader issue of an overall plan for dogs and dog access opportunities in the city, such as off-leash dog runs. Now, as you guys all know, I've been on this commission since the concept of dog access was reborn, if you will, in 2008. There used to be a dog access subcommittee that I was on, and we did a lot of studies, a lot of analysis. We looked at a lot of available information from other towns, other states, other areas with dog access beaches, see what we could learn about this. The same concerns that existed 13 years ago appear to still be before us. Although some might say the beaches are skinnier now than they were 13 years ago, but many of the same concerns exist. And so I have seen it all and heard it all. And I don't want to monopolize the conversation, but I do want to share, if anyone wants, the knowledge from past meetings and past public workshops and past presentations that we've all done, vetting the different areas and the scope of things to come. And so with that, I'll allow the floor to be taken by somebody else. Anybody wish to chime in and start? Bernie?
Steve, I'll start. I actually have about 3 pages of notes here. I'm just going to kind of rifle through so I don't miss anything. At our last meeting, there was little to no public input, and so we, I think, collectively agreed to table this. And in the time off, I really wanted to give this a fair shake. So I started to do a little bit of research myself. So as I looked at all the different dog beaches kind of within 100 miles of here, they all seem to be relatively successful. And so I focused particularly on Ocean Beach, Dog Beach, and mostly because I lived within 6 minutes of there in college. I surfed Ocean Beach a lot. I surfed Avalanche a lot, which is just a little bit south of the designated dog area. And I'd run my dog on that beach, and we loved it. But it was not uncommon for me to encounter dog feces when I'd go to surf, and so I do have a bit of a sour taste in my mouth from that beach. But I thought I'd just do a little bit of research because it's been around for 50 years. And it's arguably the most popular of the dog beaches in the area. And there's a ton of dog amenities just in that area. But I found an article that was pretty interesting. And they said that they estimate they get about 100 dogs a weekend on that beach. And then according to the Storm Water Division, and John, this might answer some of the questions you had for Cynthia. They said the big issue at Dog Beach is dog excrement. The beach is at the mouth of the San Diego River, so it does catch some of the pollutants that wash down, but that's not what's troubling them. Dog Beach is highly contaminated due to bacteria and dog excrement, way more polluted than most San Diego beaches, and that's a direct quote. And they added that 2 days worth of dropping from about 100 animals could contribute to enough pollution to cause closures of beaches for 20 miles around. So you talked about that. I know Cynthia's evidence from the pier doesn't support that, and so we have to sort of balance that, but that does come from the Stormwater Division in San Diego. They went on to say that hookworm, ringworm, tapeworm, salmonella, dog waste is infected with all of these and leaving adults, especially children, susceptible to fever, muscle aches, vomiting, and diarrhea. So the question that they posed in this article is, why isn't everybody in Ocean Beach getting sick? And the experts suggested it was because of the vast size, effectively parts per million, of the contaminants versus the overall area of that 40-acre deep dog park. And keep in mind, within 10 minutes of there's grass dog parks. I mean, there's a ton of options for the area, and they still get 100 people a weekend down there. They also said that it had to do with responsible dog owners, and I can't take anything away from them. In fact, I commend responsible dog owners, and I love it. But for the sake of argument, to kind of come back to San Clemente, we had about 1,000 respondents in the survey who were dog owners. So if we just assume that 10% of those were to use our designated dog area, we'd be about 100 dogs a week as well. And that's only 10% of the respondents. Sam had mentioned that we get 6,500 licenses a year in San Clemente. So I think, going from no amenity to a limited amenity, it's pretty reasonable to assume 100 dogs a weekend in a limited area makes sense. In the survey, the most popular beach option was North Beach. And it makes sense to me at North Beach. We have parking, we have a wide access point. It's one of the few wide access points we have. Personally, I don't like the idea of a narrow access point like Linda Lane or T Street with dogs. It just gets too tight. So let's assume North Beach is it. I went down there and walked it in a super scientific way that a golfer would. And I came up with roughly 3/4 of an acre is what we have at the most logical point of North Beach, which would be from the snack bar north to the watershed, which is significantly less than Ocean Beach. And if I go back to what Watershed said there, the only reason that people aren't getting sick there is the sheer size of the beach versus the 100 dogs. And I'll remind you, they said that the 100 dogs over 2 days would be enough to pollute for 20 miles. So the other piece that I noticed when I was down there, and every time I go down to our beaches, is that they're shrinking. Steve, you mentioned this. North Beach is almost all cobblestones. There is no beach. And by the way, that 3/4 acres was at low tide. So it would be half that at high tide. So there really isn't space at North Beach. And the beach gets narrower as we get to the pier. The pier doesn't seem like a good option for me just because of how busy the pier is. And then if we go south from there, I don't see any viable beaches that have the real estate and the land required to service this sort of a dog amenity. I went back through the last 30 years of notes, and it seems that we have these discussions, and then we generally land with upholding the current regulations and rules. I went through the over 46 pages of public comments that we got, including emails and then what was just read. And although it was pretty split, it did seem that the majority of comments were against dogs on our beaches. And so I am of the opinion that we would not recommend dogs on our beaches based on that. However, I think we have an opportunity to really focus on increasing and improving our dog amenities around town. We've talked about that a ton, and I would love for, maybe not as part of this discussion, but the next is to get serious, especially with the site-specific plans, at looking at good, viable dog amenities throughout the town and our beaches. It just doesn't seem that, I mean, not on our beaches, in our parks, it just doesn't seem that our beaches is a good way for us to solve that. So thanks for putting up with my long list of notes.
Thank you, Bernie. No, we appreciate that. Okay, who would like to chime in next on this topic?
Okay, I'll go.
John.
I agree with Bernie right here and stuff. Our beaches just aren't wide. And, you know, they talk about Huntington, they talk about San Diego. You got some places with, and I was up at Pismo Beach, which my dog loved, and the dogs were allowed to run free, but their beaches are 100, 200 yards wide. And they've got a lot more beaches than what we have. We don't have it. And I would agree with Bernie that maybe look around town here at some of the areas. I even think of that big empty lot where the carnival goes every year for fencing it off for a big dog area up there. And of course, it could be closed down for a week for the carnival and things like that. But it's not really used for anything else during the year. So there are places around other than trying to open up the beaches, which, like you said, I think has more problems than we can imagine. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you, John. Who would like to chime in next? Charlie, yes.
I'll go, Steve. No, I'm a dog lover. I love my dog. My dog's the best. And a lot of respect for dog owners and especially good dog owners. I've got to agree with John and Bernie on this one. In my super scientific analysis that I did, I looked at Del Mar pretty closely, their dog amenities down in Del Mar. I looked at Huntington Beach and couldn't quite figure out where in Newport Beach the location was, but you know, it just from and compared that in just sort of size perspective to our beaches, and we just don't have the real estate on the beach. It's just as simple as that. You know, look, if we Cynthia and the Coastal Advisory Committee, if they get to the point where, and us and whoever else is involved, we get to the point where we can get involved in sand replenishment and make our beaches much wider, then maybe we bring it up at that point. But right now, the width of the beaches is just too narrow vis-a-vis some of these other areas that have these dog amenities on beaches. It's just, you know, you're talking 4, 5, 6, 7 times the width of our beaches. You know, that's my 2 cents. I am very mindful of water quality. You know, my kids surf and I'll get in the water from time to time. You know, our water quality has been good for a while, and you know, knock on wood, want to keep that going. And that's a big attraction for our area is the water, and that keeps tourism up, and that keeps sales revenue flowing into the city. And I think that's a positive. I think further too, I read in one of the comments that people might be less inclined to revote for the Clean Water Fund if we're in a position where we're kind of just tearing it all down with dog excrement and the knock-on effects associated with that, bacteria, whatnot. So that would be another fiscal hit to the city, which I wouldn't want to see happen. So that's kind of my piece on the beach. I mean, I've advocated for it many times. I think we can create a really nice dog run at Sanjee. I think there's a space for that. And truth be told, I think, Steve, you were kind of alluding to this. I think most dog owners are kind of leaning towards the idea that their dogs can be off leash. And in a place like Sanjee, which could probably be fashioned from a kind of a structured perspective, like Barron, would allow for that off leash sort of environment. And that, or I love John's idea about us utilizing the space that we use for the carnival. That would be great too. But I think we could come up with better, for sure, we need to come up through the site-specific plan with better amenities for dogs and specifically for dogs to be off leash. I think even in the best possible scenario, we would still have to have dogs be on leash on the beach. And I don't even think that would be really something I think that we could probably consider would be off leash on the beach. I just think that that would be a bridge too far, in my opinion. But especially today, right? Without sand replenishment, especially today, it's just almost not, it's not feasible in my mind. So I'll stop there.
Thank you, Charlie. Okay, anybody else wish to be heard on the topic? Rich, John Dory, which you're both?
Go ahead.
Okay, Richard. Richard, it's yours.
I had a couple thoughts, and I'm torn, honestly, because I've got a dog and he loves the beach, and whenever we go to San Diego and I get the chance to take him to Del Mar Beach, we do so because it's great. But it's got to be off leash. These people who talk about exercise and fun and romping on the beach, they're not talking about walking on the beach with a leash. So I don't think that would suit them, and I know it wouldn't suit me. So I think it's kind of unrealistic. I think none of us have really focused on the fact that somebody's got to, if there were dogs allowed, somebody's got to enforce the rules. Marine safety is for, I believe, safety in the water. And there's enough issue when we get a swell, they got to be keeping their eyes on the water. I don't want lifeguards, the responsible young kids, watching out for people who are not picking up their poop. That's not their responsibility. And I don't think we have the budget, as we did the issue with the beach trail. We know the budget and the staff personnel to enforce this. I also looked at the pure numbers. If you've got 6,000 licenses, I think somebody quoted, well, you've got a city of 60,000 plus, so that's only 1 out of 10. And if I look at the numbers from that survey, you've got 25% of the people who responded to that survey, 80% of whom are dog owners. 25% of those people said no dogs on the beach. So you have a vast minority of people who are asking for this. And then to go back to Bernie's numbers, and I think those are very apropos. If we're talking about 100 dogs in a less than a quarter mile or maybe a couple of acres, and then the argument was raised that this is going to bring revenue into the city because Ladera and wherever else is going to come down. First of all, there's no place to park. And B, I've never spent a dime in Del Mar when I've taken my dog to the beach. I think that's a fallacy argument. I don't think people are going to go to Del Mar Street with their dogs. I'm averse to dogs coming into Beach Fire and Nick's and the Cellar. I want them in there to have dinner anyway. So I don't think I think that's a fallacious argument. So I think there's going to be a cost involved with sampling, as Cynthia pointed out, a lot of money. Now, there was an interesting comment from one fellow. He said, why don't we offer, like we're doing, vaccine passports? Maybe we can offer a good dog passport. Okay, so are those people going to take issue with the fact that we want to charge $10 or $20 additional over their license fee so they can take their dogs on a leash in 2 acres? I don't think that's going to fly. So as much as I would like to have a dog beach, I think the fact that we don't have the size, as everyone has said, the numbers are against this being a realistic proposition for 60,000 residents of San Clemente, plus our visitors. So those are my 2 cents worth, 4 cents worth.
Thank you, Richard. And John, I will go right to you, but I just want to make one point of clarification. Not sure it will change anyone's mind, but while you were talking, I had a chance to take a look at the resolution that was proposed that started this ball rolling by a council member non-block. And it appears as though his proposed resolution was that dogs would remain on a 6-foot leash on a dog leash. So I think that vision was that they would be on leash for whatever value that has to anyone here.
Got it. Steve, I only mentioned that because a couple other people have mentioned that in the comments.
Yeah, well, exactly. Well, the thing is, like, it wasn't when we first started talking about a dog beach, and there is a representative of that community right now. I will agree that one of the first times we looked at this, we thought about, is this on leash or off leash? Because Huntington, and I don't know what their rule is today, but originally Huntington, the dog beach, they had a rule that the dog was to remain on leash unless the dog was in the water. Now you take the dog off the leash when they're in the water because it's a safety issue for both the dog and the human. So you can't have the dog on the leash when they're in the water. But when they're on the sand, they're supposed to be on a leash. And that was the rule in Huntington. And like I said, I don't know if it still is the rule in Huntington, but that was the rule. And so we weren't sure how this was going to plan for us anyway. But I'll stop talking. John Dory.
I have one more comment before John jumps in. I want to finish my thought. I agree with what both John and Charlie and Bernie have said, that I think we should look at options for improved access for dogs like John's right there. Elsewhere in the city. I don't like people who say that it's our responsibility or it's a requirement for us to allow dogs on the beach. I think having a dog is a privilege, and I think responsible adult owners recognize that. And I think they would be appreciative if we focus somewhere else. We've got all these parks around. Let's focus on one at a lower cost of enforcement and more room to use. So that would be my suggestion as a follow-on comment to the city. Let's look elsewhere. I'll shut
up. You mean you'll pass. John Dory.
Yeah, I think what I'm going to say has probably been said by others already in different formats. But getting back to the comment you just made, Steve, it seems to me that there is absolutely no reason to have a run on the beach for dogs unless they can run. I mean, they can walk them on a leash on trails. They can walk them just about any place in town on a leash. But to just let's get a dog beach for on leash makes no sense to me. If you take a lab down to the beach, the dog needs to go in the ocean. You know, if you're going to allow them to come down to the beach, let them go in the ocean. And then that leads to the next problem, which is what Bernie brought up, which is that you end up with bacterial opportunities. So it's catch-22 as far as I'm concerned. I love dogs. I have dogs all my life. I've had big dogs. I've had small dogs. I love to put them in the water when you can. And I know that all the dog lovers who have especially big dogs would love to be able to do that. But as Cynthia points out, and as Bernie pointed out, there are risks associated with that from a bacterial standpoint. And it's been proven to be such down in San Diego area, where there are some statistics on that. And I don't think that we as a city want to start creating more problems for water quality because we already have a whole bunch of them in the 3 areas. Now, the only place that you can really have one is North Beach, because that's where the parking is. All the rest of them, it's either you got to park and walk a long ways, or you park and you walk right onto a magnet beach where people are just going to storm that beach and be there, especially during the summer times and during nice weather. And you can't have those dogs and the people at the same time. But that's another issue you could probably work out. My take on this is, you know, I wish we could have one. I just don't see the location in my mind, and I see the problems that occur from a bacterial standpoint. I'm just going to walk away from that one. I'm done.
Okay, thank you, John. So, as I mentioned, this is my, I want to say, 13th year discussing dog access in San Clemente. I love the topic. I have always been supportive of the concept of dog access on the beach with limits, like, you know, time of year, time of day, you know, before 9 a.m., after 5 p.m., only in the off season, only at North Beach, for example. I've also been a big fan of water testing. And what better way to know if it's an issue than to let the dog be there and test the water? And we know. And then maybe 13 years from now, I'm lucky enough to still be on this commission with you fine folks, we're not looking at this issue again. And so what we're doing is we're raising these issues, or we're being asked to vet these issues, and we're making decisions based on information that, in all fairness, is kind of guesswork. I mean, we don't know what impact it has on bacterial levels. We don't know how many people will come down. We do know that any kind of program like that would have to be tied to some extra funding from the city, like we have to hire a park ranger who is down there at the beach on those times. We don't have money to hire extra park rangers, but we would have to do it. And as Cynthia pointed out, you know, there is testing available that costs extra money. We have to do that. If we were to open the beach, we would have to pay this extra $500. I don't know if we have to do it every week, but certainly once a month or something, we'd have to pay for that. And so we don't have any indication from the city that they're willing to put money behind something of this nature. And so I feel constrained, because while I support the idea and always have supported the idea with certain limitations, we can't tell city council we support it, but you have to spend the money to do it. And we have to have enforcement. It can't be on the lifeguards' watch. So it would have to be the city hiring more park rangers to do that. And I don't see the city doing that. We have to do this extra testing. And I don't know where the money would come from, but I share that because my sense is that when I turn this over to the floor for someone to make a motion, that there will not be a motion made at all, and that this item will die on the table. I don't want to predict that, but that's my sense. And when it does die on the table, then I want at least the city council to understand all of our concerns and some of the reality that money has to be put behind a concept of this nature. And it can't just happen like, let's just see what happens. You have to have a plan in place. I feel very strongly about off-leash dog runs. I feel strongly that nobody wants to be on the beach with a dog on a leash. There doesn't seem to be any point to it, especially at North Beach, because it's all cobble, so nobody wants to sit there anyway. And nobody wants to be dragged around on a 6-foot leash by their dog, because the dogs don't care about cobble. But we do if we're running behind a dog on cobble. So you need the off-leash options. We've talked about this for years. I think that's what people really want, is a place to let their dogs run as nature intended, not necessarily on sand. You know, Barron doesn't work anymore, and Barron is far away from a lot of people. We need 3 or 4 off-leash options It's just a chain link fence around a plot of grass, and if grass survives, great. And if it doesn't, c'est la vie. It's just a place to run. So with my thoughts now put out there, and with the recognition that it is entirely possible, even if we take no action, this might be coming back to us. Because it appears as though we've taken the perspective that we're being asked to decide whether a pilot program happens at all. And just so you folks are aware, it could end up being that it comes back to us with pick a place. And if that's the case, we'll deal with that down the road. But for now, the floor is open to anyone who wishes to make a motion. I see some hands. Bernie?
I have a question.
I had a question first. Which beach was it that the city councilman wanted to put this dog run at?
It was between D-Hay and 204, I believe.
Okay. My first suggestion is to maybe make a two-part thing, saying you try to come up with some dog runs elsewhere, as I've already mentioned, and Jim Johnson or San Gorgonio will be another one. But the second one would be to say, okay, let's go along with the recommendation from the city council, and but limit it to after the summer's coming on, and we don't want to start something now at this time of the year. And so maybe after Labor Day, and limit the time in the morning from 6 to 9, and in the evening 5 to 9 or something, whatever. But I can't see saying, that would be the only compromise. Is to give it back to the city council, say, this is what you guys want. Well, we'll give it to you, or we'll say could be recommended, but our first recommendation is no dog beach, and find some parks to put up. Like you said, chain link fence wouldn't be that expensive, much less expensive than a $10,000 a day fine.
Thank you, John. Bernie has a hand.
Yeah, I got two thoughts. One is off of the suggestion of D-Hay to 204. There is no beach from D-Hay to 204 at high tide. I mean, I'm sorry to Councilman Knobloch for this, but I mean, it's a horrible idea. So and beach access is horrible. You have stairs that you have to negotiate, and that's not my recommendation. Now, my follow-up to that is, you said that you put on your little magic prediction cap and thought we wouldn't have a motion. I was thinking, why can't we move that we recommend city council uphold the existing prohibition of dogs on beaches? I mean, it seems that that's been the recommendation for the last 30 plus years. Why can't, could that be the motion that we send back?
Well, the short answer is any motion that is seconded on an agenda item that ultimately receives a majority affirmation can go back to city council. They asked us, and again, that's why I went back to the minutes a couple of different times to make sure. So they asked us to look at a bunch of different elements about this, the efficacy of doing so, the costs, other options, and things of that sort. So it really depends on what type of motion would be framed. It is, if they had sent back to us, we're going to do a dog beach, tell us where you want to do it. Mm-hmm. Would we send back something that said we don't want one at all? No, we would we'd either pick one, or we'd say we couldn't pick one.
I don't think that I think we've all agreed we can't pick one, but I'm not sure that that's the way that I read the agenda item. Is they're asking us to discuss and provide feedback on the viability of a dog beach, in which case I'm prepared to make a motion as it would relate to that. If we're being asked to pick a beach, which I don't see that way, I'm not I'm not prepared to pick a beach. I don't. I think that we've all agreed that our beaches don't support what's the necessary infrastructure for a dog beach.
Right, and Bernie, I'm 100% not putting you on the spot, but did you listen to the city council meeting when this issue was vetted?
I absolutely did not.
Okay. Well, I have to admit, I had people texting me, letting me know when a good time was to check in, so that I didn't have to endure the entire meeting. But I understand why there is some confusion as to what was sent to us. Because there was a motion, the motion was adjusted, it was seemingly adjusted on the fly. And so minutes reflect something that I can see why reasonable minds would differ about what the motion actually was. And it depends on who you ask of the five, what the motion was. So,
Well,
and,
Steve,
and by the way, they had an opportunity at their last city council meeting to approve the minutes. And as I understand, they tabled the issue, meaning they started a debate about the minutes and then didn't resolve it. And so to me, I felt like we were being asked to pick a place.
well, in that case, as long as we're talking about motions,
Yes,
I would like to make a motion.
please do.
I move that we recommend City Council uphold the existing prohibition of dogs on beaches.
Is there a second on that motion?
I'll second that.
Okay. Is there any discussion on the motion?
I have one, I just looked up the definition of efficacy because I've used that word before and I probably used it incorrectly. But it's a great word, but that's what they started their statement to us. And efficacy is the ability to produce a desired or intended result. So are they starting from the premise of whether they want us to come to a conclusion that allows them to move forward? Well, we're going to stop right there and say, based on all those subsequent considerations, health concerns, cost concerns, timing, those all draw a line in the sand at our efficacy to deliver a dog beach. It doesn't work, given our premise. That's why I second Bernie's motion.
Okay, is there any discussion, other discussion on the motion?
Going back and rereading what was written, it said staff recommends that the BP&R Commission consider opportunities for improving dog access, which I think we've done. We've considered it. We've talked it through on San Clemente public beaches, and provide a recommendation for suggested locations and operations. I just wonder if it might make some sense to say, you know, we can't provide a recommendation for a suggested location or operations based on you know, limited infrastructure, as Bernie mentioned. I'm just trying to make sure that we're kind of lining up with what they'd asked us to do.
Yeah, because at the end of that sentence, it says if a recommendation allows. So that's the outright there.
Yeah.
Our recommendation doesn't allow it.
Yeah.
Why don't, so while the motion is pending, why don't we ask Samantha, this is her report, to join us. Hello, Samantha.
Hello.
Okay, so you and I have discussed this briefly, and you've heard our discussion as well here as a whole. What is your takeaway of what we've been asked to do on this topic?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I understand why there is some confusion or misunderstanding in it. I think the goal originally was to seek out commission input regarding the location, but there were other council members who also sought to get guidance as a whole related to dog access. And that's where that word efficacy comes into play. Looking to see if it's really, is it feasible? Is it the right thing to do? And then if so, then what would also be a location that would be recommended? I believe that through public comments and also council member comments, there was a lot of locations thrown out there, whether that's a single beach or all beaches. And the council ultimately was looking, is this something the commission wants to even entertain? And if so, then what's the location? Which is why the staff recommendation, if the commission's recommendation allows for it, then propose a location or suggest a location.
Steve?
Yes, Richard. I know we're all marinating on that response to try to figure out, well, does that mean we should do both? We should do like, well, no dog beach, but just in case you guys are going to overrule us and do one, this is where we think it should go.
Can we add to the proposal that Bernie has put forward to say that it's our recommendation, given our purview of being responsible for beaches and parks and recreation, to recommend that city council look elsewhere within our city resources for dog-friendly, what have you? Can we add that, or is that a second motion? I don't want to complicate.
Well, I mean, it's up to Bernie if he wants to amend his motion. As I understand your inquiry, you're asking for the motion to be something like, it is not efficacious at this time to have dog access on the public beach, but that the city should actively look at off-leash dog runs within the city parks. So is that
Right.
kind of like?
That was good use of the word efficacious as well. So that was well put.
I didn't look it up, so I don't know if it's right, but it's a fun word.
Yeah, if I could spell efficacious, I'd consider amending that. I had a second motion. I was intentional in splitting those out. I am 100% in agreement with Richard on this. We need more, better, and bigger amenities for dogs in the city. 100%. I felt like that was a secondary motion that would follow this. I think we unequivocally need to put dogs on San Clemente beaches to bed. I think history has shown us. I mean, it's been 30 years. My dad was on this commission, not on Zoom, but on this commission when we were talking about this. And so I would love to put the issue of dogs on beaches to bed.
Yes.
And I would love for us to spend as much time, if not more, than we put on this, on finding great resources for dogs to run off leash in public parks in specific areas. I'd like, but I feel like those need to be separate issues so that we don't muddy the water here, and that we can send a very clear recommendation to council that we do not support a dog beach or dogs on beaches. So
Can I call
John
for
has
the
a question.
Yeah, no, can I call for the vote then on Bernie's motion?
Yes, you can call for the. So Bernie, your motion. Can you restate your motion?
I sure can. If it's too simple, I'm happy to adjust. I move that we recommend City Council uphold the existing prohibition of dogs on beaches.
Okay, John, you've seconded that motion.
Yes.
Okay, all in favor, raise your hand. 2, 3. Okay. All opposed to that motion, raise your hand. Okay, that motion fails 3-3. Bernie, do you wish to make a different motion? You're not obligated to.
No, I don't think I do.
Okay. Does anybody else wish to make a motion at this time?
My frustration here is that we don't, and it's not that I disagree with the concept that Bernie was chasing there. I think he has a credible grounds for making that motion. I know that there's a long history on this. I'm a little frustrated with the city council. I think that they kind of shot us down in this hole, gave us a location apparently that is, and I agree that whole area between DeHay and 204 is gone half the time. Try to walk around it, you can't. You can get caught on one side and can't get back. I mean, who comes up with these locations? And then tries, it's not a location. It's half a beach. And then tries and then wants us to make these decisions. So to me, it's kind of like I was kind of leaning towards Bernie, but I just don't know if I want to completely go to that extreme. But I can tell you, I haven't got a clue where we put one that makes sense for parking and makes sense for the run and allows dogs to go into the water. It seems to me also that the city council did not give us a clear pathway to follow. And it seems to maybe the best thing to do is go back to them and say, why don't you guys get your act together and come back to us? You know, it may be we end up back where Bernie is, but I'm a little confused as for them to give us a couple of different ways to look at the question, and then we're supposed to fire a single shot back. It's confusing to me. Sorry.
No, that's fine. And John, you nailed it. Whatever we do here, they're going to do what they're going to do.
Yeah.
And if three of them want to have dogs on the beach, that will happen. And however they decide to frame it, certain hours, certain times of the year, like I said, for me, it would be very important that it had funding behind it for the fecal matter testing and for the park rangers and those kinds of things. But I don't know that making a motion along those lines makes any sense either. Plus, I don't know how anybody would feel about a very limited pilot program with a fiscal impact of that magnitude. If nobody else has any other motions they wish to make or proposals of a motion that they wish to have made by somebody else, then predictably the matter will die on the table.
If I can help, the minutes to Chairman Strager's point, they were moved to the next meeting because they were in question at the last city council meeting before they could be adopted. The draft minutes as it stands today did state that they refer the possibility of establishing a portion of the beach on which dogs would be permitted to the BP&R Commission for analysis and report back to the council at its meeting of June 1st, 2021. They sought that the commission obtain public and staff input to assist in its assessment of a possible dog beach. Issues to be assessed included efficacy, location for one-year test pilot program, fiscal impact, liability, water quality, health and safety, and the broader issue of an overall plan for dogs and dog access. I don't know if that muddies the water, but that's what the draft minutes stand today. And they tabled it to be reconsidered because they were going to go back and check the actual video. The city clerk was.
Yeah, I think the difficulty is that they didn't say we're going to have dog access on the beach and BP&R give us your recommendation on location and structure of the program.
That's
because
correct.
That's normally how we would get a referral. A reference from the city council would normally have those parameters. This is what we're going to do. Give us your suggestion on what it should look like. Not should we do it? And if so, what should it look like? Because the should we do it is a much bigger issue, which really sits with the individuals who are placed in their seat by the public consensus. So I actually think taking no action tells them what we need them to do, which is you guys decide.
Here's what I struggle with, Steve, on that is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm certainly only speaking for myself, but it felt like as we went around, the six of us were in agreement that we wanted to have amenities for dogs, but we've also all been in agreement that we don't believe that our beaches can support dogs, right? Or dogs on leash or off. And so I feel better, and my motion failed. So I'm open for suggestions on how to get our point across. I'd rather than sending over nothing, I would love for us to be able to say exactly that. We don't recommend dogs on our beaches, and my language in that was a collection of past recommendations from this commission to city council and their actions over the last 30 years. So I'd rather not just let it die here and wait for them to come back and us say the exact same thing in 2 months or whenever we meet again.
Is there any formulation of a program? And again, this is keeping the dogs on leash. So I don't know that anyone's talking about off leash, and that wasn't what was sent to us because the original resolution was an on leash resolution. So I view that as being a parameter to start with. Is there any version of an on leash, limited hours, certain times of year, limited location, coupled with fiscal requirements that you would get behind?
No. Here's why, because when I went down to walk out North Beach today, it was by San Clemente standards, it was snowing, right? I mean, it was a cold day today and overcast and dreary, and the beaches were packed. And so I think the idea that we have down days is a fallacy. We are a beach town. We fluctuate from busy to absurd. And so and if we do have down days, it's generally when it's raining, which creates, as Cynthia said, it creates issues with runoff. So yeah, I don't think there's anything that I would support on that. I have to hold pretty firm here that I don't believe that San Clemente should be a home for a dog beach.
Just a comment on what Bernie's saying, because I feel his pain, so to speak. I don't think any of us can come up with a location. First of all, if it's just let's have a dog beach where we can walk our dogs on leash, I think is ridiculous. I just don't even think, why are we doing that? You're either going to have to let them run and jump in the water, or you don't have a dog beach, because that's really what a dog beach is about. It's letting them run. So that in itself is a non-starter for me. You got to give me something to work with, and that's the other piece. Then when you add that other piece into it, it creates this whole other issue with bacteria and interfering with other people's lifestyles that want to lay on the beach. And you need a beach big enough that can handle it, and parking big enough that's not in residential. And the only place that I can even think of is North Beach. And we already have a history there historically for bacteria. So I love dog beaches. My older brother lives in Carmel. He has 2 big labs. He takes them down and runs the heck out of them, runs all the way down one end and down the other, throws bumpers out in the water for them, takes them home, hoses them off, and they're happy and they're exhausted. And you see it up and down the beach, but that's a huge beach. huge beach.
So if I may, John, it sounds like you are suggesting to Bernie that if he does a similar motion, but he phrases it in terms of off leash, that is a greater consensus amongst us. Yeah, I don't want to put words in your mouth or Bernie make suggestions, but maybe that's an approach to take to make a clear statement that what John is saying, on leash makes no sense and off leash is a non-starter.
Well, that's just my conclusion personally, but I don't know what, I'm not sure exactly if that's some sort of motion. I don't know what, I'm a little confused as to what they're really asking us to do. But if they're asking us to find a on leash beach, use the trail, just use the trail, walk them on the trail. We've already got one. And if it's the other, I just don't think we have the beach for it. So that's just my conclusion.
Bernie, you wanna take another crack at a motion?
Man, there's 5 other commissioners on here who are the exact same thing.
I know, but if you want to, that's great. If anybody else wants to, the floor is
My
open.
motion would be identical. I could change we to BP&R. That's just kind of where I'm at. So I'm open to supporting another motion that's similar to what I've already proposed. We just uphold the way it is now.
I'm in John Dory's camp, and that's the reason why I voted against Bernie's motion. I'm not sure what City Council is asking us to do specifically, and I'm just trying to operate within the confines of what was suggested, just so we can be as constructive as possible. I agree with where Bernie's going, just as John had mentioned too. I'm trying to give council something that's constructive and that they can utilize. So it sounds like we're not doing a great job of it, but
Yes,
Question
Don.
here. Well, since the motion failed, we still uphold the old law anyway. It really doesn't matter because we didn't pass anything, so we're
Correct.
still following the old rules.
Correct. Although I think Bernie wanted to say that it is the BPR's recommendation that an off-leash beach access is not efficacious. I think that's what he wanted to say, and I think that is where we kind of all were.
I don't think the leash was not. I wonder, would it make a difference if we added some background color? I like things simple, believe it or not, with my long list of bullet points. If we added some background color to the effect of, after discussing the issues of dogs on city beaches for the better part of 3 decades and multiple meetings here, we've determined that our beaches cannot support dogs on leash or off, and would recommend that council uphold the existing prohibition of dogs on beaches. Would that make anyone more comfortable?
I feel like you'd have more success if you kept to off leash. But it has to be your motion. Keep in mind that when they get the minutes, enumerate all the different points, it's just a laundry list of points. And then it's the motion. And then it's whatever the vote is. So it's the language of the motion that is going to resonate more than just the various points in the backstory, if you will. So if you want to send a message, so to speak, it's the 30 words in your motion that are going to be the message.
And that's where I'm at. To me, the leash or not leash is a bit of a slippery slope. So I guess I will go back to mute.
let me, Steve, let me take a swing here. I'm gonna
Okay.
probably botch
Charlie would
this.
like to make a motion.
I'll make a swing. the Beach Parks and Recreation Commission recommends no location or associated operations for dogs on the beach.
Is there a second on that motion?
Charlie, can you repeat it?
Yeah,
please?
no problem.
I'm trying-
Yep. The Beach Parks and Recreation Commission recommends no location no location and associated operations for dogs on the beach.
Is there a second on that motion?
I'm sorry, Charles, I really don't understand it, quite frankly.
I'm trying to operate within the confines of what was written here. And so basically I'm trying to operate within, trying to give a suggestion back to City Council that we don't consider dogs on the beach to be appropriate at this particular time, and and give them, as opposed to just coming back with nothing, give them some sort of direction that we don't suggest that that there's any location or operations. Maybe I'll drop the operations piece. Maybe that makes it confusing, but there's no location that makes sense in our mind.
And is that on or off leash?
I would say both.
Okay, so I just want to make to the point is, if there's enough constituent support to walk a dog on the beach, even though we might think it's no different than walking on the beach trail. Right. Somebody wants to walk on the beach because they don't like the bicyclists on the beach trail or the strollers on the beach trail, and they just want to walk a dog on a leash. What your motion is directed at maintaining that as a prohibition as well. You can kind of see where my hesitation comes as well, and so you make your motion as you wish, and we'll see what happens with it.
Yeah, just to further conversation on that particular point, though, Steve, on leash on the beach, we still face the same issue that we did with dog mess on the beach, right? It's no different whether it's on leash or off leash. Maybe if it's on leash, it's a little bit more controlled, but we see on leash on the beach trail, and people still don't pick up after their dogs, and just kind of think it puts us in the same spot we were before with the comments that were made. So
Steve, that's okay. You can make that motion. I'm not suggesting one way or the other.
No, I'm just trying to. I understand that, but I'm just trying to specify my thinking behind that,
Steve,
or clarify, I should say.
Prior to a second, since we're having a discussion, can I recommend some slight alterations to what Charlie has suggested, or is that inappropriate?
No, not inappropriate at all. And my language, I'm sure, is pretty muddy. So yes, please.
So what I hear is Charlie just withdrew his motion pending further discussion. And so you'll have your discussion, and then he'll decide what to do.
Perfect.
Okay.
Charlie, what I did is I just sort of, I think I've crafted it in the same manner that you did, but hear me out, and then we can figure this out together. This is not necessarily a motion; it's a discussion of it. So, Beaches, Parks, and Recreation Commission recommends the City Council uphold current rules and regulations for allowing or not allowing for dog access on San Clemente public beaches, and do not recommend any location for on or off leash dog access to city beaches. So it's a little repetitive. I did it, but that takes page 8 of our agenda report and the staff recommendation and turns it into a commission recommendation that supports effectively not moving forward with dog access. And Steve, it accommodates for the on and off leash conversation. It certainly needs some wordsmithing, but
Was that a motion?
It was still in discussion, Richard.
Okay.
But I like that motion, Bernie.
And so since we're in discussion mode, if I just may, and this is to John Dory's point, I don't know how many people who want to take their dog on the beach are going to be happy about doing it on leash. Doing it on leash removes some of the concerns, not all of them, but some of the concerns. And since our principal concern is water quality, it seems like that is one that is addressed at least. My feeling is that if the city council is going to do something, on or off leash is going to be a hot topic for them. And so if we want it to come back to us, then we need to demonstrate some openness to considering what they might send back to us. So if we say it's a non-starter regardless, it's never coming back to us, right? Whatever they do, they're done. If we leave some wiggle room, maybe it comes back to us. So I don't know. I'm not as offended as somebody walking their dog on the beach as they walking their dog on the beach trail, because I don't see that much difference. They're going to pick up their poop on the trail or the beach either way. I do see a difference with the dog being in the water or being off leash and running amok. So that's where I see a difference. But really, it's a practical matter of whether it comes back to us or not. So go ahead, Bernie.
No, I was just going to say, I don't think that my issue has anything to do with being, at least me, offended by people on leash or off leash. Generally speaking, when I'm walking on the trail, I have shoes on, my kids have shoes on. When we're on the beach and we step in something without shoes, it's bothersome. So I do see a difference between on the trail and on the beach. It very much so in the same way that I saw a difference between on the trail and on the beach as it would relate to bikes and e-bikes. The trail is a very different beast. People don't lay on the trail. People are in motion. So with that said, I would like to take another stab at a motion here. And it would read, Beaches, Parks, and Recreation Commission recommends the City Council uphold current rules and regulations surrounding dog access on San Clemente beaches, and do not recommend any location for on or off leash dog access to city beaches.
Is there a second on that motion?
I'll second it.
John has seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Okay.
Yeah, just that last piece. I just wanted to hear the exact words to that last piece. I'm not sure exactly what I heard as far as the last sentence there.
It's actually one giant run-on sentence, John. So I'm just glad
I'll give you that.
I'm just glad that Coach Bandrick wasn't my English teacher. So here we go. Beaches, Parks, and Recreation Commission recommends the City Council uphold current rules and regulations surrounding dog access to San Clemente beaches. And we do not recommend any location for on or off leash dog access to beaches or to city.
So what you're saying basically is that we're just not recommending. It's keep it kind of where it is, and we're not agreeing together on a site that we wish to back for you to look at.
I'm happy to take any suggestions on how to edit
No,
it.
I'm not. I'm just trying to understand it. I had no problem. I understand it now.
For sure. The crux of the idea here is that we recommend that we uphold the current rules. I got rid of prohibition, but we uphold the current rules and regulations surrounding the access. And as a commission, we do not recommend any of our city beaches for dog access. And so what that does is I think it covers all the bases for what they asked for. We're asking the council to uphold our current status quo and we're putting a stake in the ground to say that we've discussed it and we don't recommend any of our beaches for future dog access.
I'm just going to say that I like the way it's phrased, and not making a recommendation on a topic is easier for me to get behind rather than being opposed to a discussion about it. So I definitely like the second part, but I think there is a second on your motion. Anybody else have any questions on the motion? Okay, all in favor of the motion indicate by raising your hand. Okay.
Yay.
Thank you, Bernie.
So Bernie, since you're the author of that, do you want to make a recommendation that we send up also that we take seriously looking at off-leash dog runs? Now we put that in their face as well.
Yeah, now that that's passed, I'm not, this is where I'm struggling and could use guidance from staff and from you, Steve. It feels like every time we talk about a park amenity, it comes back to, hey, it's on its way. We're going to do a site-specific plan. And I'm struggling with the idea of making a motion to ask city council to ask us, to come back. And so I don't know if it's a motion, but I certainly want to go on the record that we need to act. We've been talking for way too long. We need to act and do something about additional improved and larger dog amenities around town. So I'm not sure if we make a motion for that because we're not talking about that right now. But
I think, if I may, and Samantha, correct me, but when we talk about tabling something for a site-specific plan amendment, and it goes into the plan amendment, it's not funded. It's just part of the wish list on a park. If we make a motion that the city council approve funding for the creation of off-leash dog parks, then we get a yes or no if we're going to get funding to actually do it, which I think would sort of be necessary. And I think funding for an off-leash dog park, you might also shove some pork in there about funding for park rangers, because we're woefully understaffed on park rangers, and there's a fiscal impact for doing this. And so anyway, those are my thoughts on the value of doing a motion. I don't know, Samantha,
Steve, can you make that motion then?
Well, I know Bernie asked Samantha the same question, so I wanted to give her a chance to.
Okay.
Sorry, repeat what you're looking for me to address.
Bernie, I can do it if you want. So Bernie was concerned that if we make a motion that the city council actually authorize expenditures to create off-leash dog runs, we're just going to get thrown back at us. We'll deal with it with the site-specific plan. But in my view, the site-specific plan is not a funding mechanism. It's just a wish list that may or may not ever come to fruition. And so if we send it up as a separate motion, because it is part of our directive here, that they will approve the motion for funding to actually create these things, then we just figure out where they go.
It seems like this is kind of a badminton game with the city council. We knock things over the fence and then they knock it back to us and they vote whichever way they want. If we make a recommendation or request for funding, are they going to bounce it back to us and say, sure, do a study and tell us how much it will cost and then come back to us? Should we phrase this such that we intend to create a study group to look at the cost of, and we will bring that to you, and we want your blessing on that, just a 20,000 foot view? Is that the way we should operate with them? I'm trying to think of how we get them to be motivated and to not just to say, no, we don't want that, dismissive.
Well, here's the thing. So stepping away from the technical way that it works, if a majority of San Clemente residents want more off-leash dog access, and they thought it was going to come from the beach because that made sense to be off leash, but it doesn't. So if all those people want something, and that's part of the directive for us to look at, it makes sense for us to say, yes, we believe we need this and we need funding to do it. And then that will take some of the air out of the other issue, I think.
I agree with that, Steve. I wonder, since to Richard's point, we asked them to set aside funding. They're going to ask how much, but I don't mind that coming back as long as we have that conversation. And so I wonder if we ask them to earmark or set aside funding for increased and improved off-leash dog amenities in select Sanctimony parks, or something to that effect, or so that we can. I guess what I'm struggling with is, do we agendize it for ourselves, or do we ask council to agendize it for us? Because if we ask them to give us money, they're going to want to know how much, and none of us are prepared to even answer that question.
So if I can interject, I do want to speak on the master plan. I have an update in the manager's report that I'll go through a few more details. We are on the brink of starting that. And I think to prematurely dedicate funding to dog access ahead of other amenities, and keep in mind, we're doing 5 plan updates. And I think all 5 of these parks have really good value related to potential dog access. So bear that in mind. I know it's not, the feeling is we keep saying we're going to do it. Now we're here. We are working on it, and I will give you an update in the manager report. If the commission wants to put their foot forward to say, yes, we support other off-leash dog access in parks and other areas of the city, and we recommend council dedicate funding, that they could do that through the current budget process. We're right in the middle of getting budget together. There's going to be a budget workshop in May, and budget adoption is usually that first meeting in June. So there is an option for that, but it's hard to say a dollar amount. There's a lot of different options. Yes, you can just put up a chain link fence that just has grass. There's ongoing maintenance with that. There's different surfaces that you can put at a dog park. So I think there's other elements beyond just a fence around an existing space. But to say the commission's very supportive of future off-leash opportunities is a very viable recommendation as well. Well,
and to my point, it falls on deaf ears if it's not a motion. Because otherwise, you've seen what the minutes look like. It's just a litany of comments, not attributed to anyone or to any majority perspective. And then effectively all we're doing is we're just sending them saying, we don't like your beach idea. And that's all we've been at this for 2 hours, and all we've said to city council.
Doesn't it, Steve, doesn't it carry any weight if we make a proposal, a recommendation that we prioritize with the upcoming plan off-leash park? Doesn't it carry some weight in going with this first motion that we've recommended for no beach dog park?
I just think it's more valuable that we send some second motion up there about the off-leash option somewhere. Whatever it looks like, it doesn't matter.
I have one, I'll do it and we'll see what happens here. Because
okay.
So Beaches, Parks and Rec Commission recommends City Council earmark funding during this FY budget process for increased and improved off-leash dog amenities as it would relate to our site-specific park master plans. That puts it on them. I think it does a good job of acknowledging that we're on the cusp of looking at the site-specific plans, and has a outside chance of actually getting into this budget cycle.
Is there a second on the motion?
Yeah, I'll second that. I like the fact that we're taking something back to them, saying that, okay, the beaches don't work, but something else does. Let's pay attention to it because there seems to be a priority in the community. If this motion kind of has that flavor and sense about it, then yeah, I support it.
And Steve, and I want to overcomplicate this because I like the direction we're going, but I was just going back to John Banderick's comment earlier about utilizing the, the field at Vista for dogs currently, and I don't think there's a fence around that, unfortunately, but that could be something that they could utilize like almost immediately and wouldn't require a lot of work. It would take putting the gate up, or maybe I'm oversimplifying it. Samantha will correct me. But I'm wondering if there was a way to weave in something that's fairly simple and quick and assuages kind of the general concern of the citizens, like utilizing that space immediately as opposed to getting into something that's a little bit more complicated, involves the site specific plans and whatnot.
Well, I think you touched on a really good point. That was my original point, was just authorize expenditure to make off-leash dog access now, period.
Now,
It might be that the 5 parks we're looking at are the best targets for it, but I don't know if those are the only options for wearing off. Are we doing Vista Hermosa this round of the 5?
No,
Okay,
Yeah.
no,
so-
but if you're looking to just dedicate funding towards anywhere, the Meadows could be on the table. Absolutely. Any park site could be on the table.
well, and like I said, I love Bernie's motion, but I just wonder if it's going to take a while. And I think people's hot button issue now is that we're coming into the summer months and we still don't have a viable solution within the city, and people don't like the Barron Park.
Well, and the thing is, if we did a general motion, like put funds toward better off-leash options, I think Bernie said it pretty well, the first part of his motion, then that could be money to Barron, to put some shade there and some grass there. It could be money anywhere, but it's something, because right now off-leash options just suck.
Yeah.
In San Clemente.
And not for lack of spending, though. And that's my concern is I love the idea of, hey, let's just slap something together and put it out there. But then we wind up with another Barron. If we're just going to put a fence around a dirt lot, when it rains, people are going to, it's muddy, or whatever it is. And so I'm happy to amend this motion if we want to put some urgency in there for kind of immediacy. It just feels like we have a better chance of it being taken seriously if we talk about it in terms of fiscal responsibility and looking at the budget process.
I don't disagree with you, but I think to Charlie's point, and Samantha, you can correct us, if we put it as part of a site-specific plan, I mean, that, it's going to take a year to get the plan approved. Let's just be, given our history, especially if we have to have professionals chime in on this, it's going to take a while to get the plan approved. And then assuming the plan is approved, sometimes these things just sort of become wallpaper at that point. Like someone's got to keep pushing the issue. Samantha's got to keep going there and saying, okay, look, now we need the money to do it. We've got this wish list, but now we got to make it happen.
Fair enough. With all due respect to our city staff, does anything happen overnight in bureaucracy? Even if we just say let's put up a fence, I don't think that I would hate for us to short sell the opportunity to really do something great for dog owners in San Clemente, based on the fact that it's going to take a long time. And we just got done talking about it's taken 3 decades of talking about the beach. I'm hopeful that with our site-specific plans, it won't drag on for another decade, or until my kids are on this commission. But I feel a responsibility to not just do the quick thing, but to do the right thing. And I just have a feeling that this motion's, even if it goes up to council, is going to come back to us anyway. So I'd like to put my best foot forward as is. I'm happy to amend it, but I don't want to throw something out there to get another half-ass solution for these dog owners. They're passionate about it. They want it. They talk to us about it. I've met with them. And I want to make sure that we do the right thing.
Bernie, I'll just say one quick thing. I think with the site-specific plan, we can come up with something that's pretty good and serves the community well. I guess what I was suggesting is that, like, if we're considering Vista Hermosa, that seems to be something, especially since it's not in the site-specific plan, that seems to be something that is a resource that we can utilize fairly quickly. Probably will not be terribly expensive. And so I think we can kind of kill two birds with one stone, which is to give something that is long-term and strategic and desirable and fits with the point that you're making. But I think we can also maybe potentially get something that can be a little bit more immediate, maybe even before the summer. Maybe I'm just being Pollyannish, but something to kind of assuage people's angst around this, which, as I read through the comments, there is some angst around people being able to get out. And I think the level of activity is only going to go up, more so because of people's quarantine fatigue. And then people being vaccinated and then wanting, I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of people out and about this summer, and more than we're probably accustomed to. And so I guess what I was trying to just tackle is there some sort of happy medium that we can employ that would allow people to have something that we can utilize fairly quickly, is my point.
So I'm happy, I agree with you 100%. So I'm happy to add in, it waters it down, and I don't know if we can even do this, but I'm happy to tack on an and/or statement to it, so that it would read, I'll read it in its entirety. Beaches, Parks and Recs, or BPRC, recommends City Council earmark funding during this FY budget process for increased and improved off-leash dog amenities as it would relate to our site-specific park master plans, and/or immediate funding for a temporary solution while we plan for more permanent amenities. I say amenities too much in there, but that's fine.
Is there a second on the amended motion?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion on the amended motion? All in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Okay, that looks like 6. Thank you, Bernie. Okay, does anybody else want to make any other motions as it relates to dog access at this time? There were 7 calls for us to look at. It seems like we actually covered all 7 just by what we did. So if nobody has any other motions, that will close item 4. Okay, item 5, new business. Do we have any new business, Samantha?
Nothing this evening.
Okay, item 6, public input. I think we received some of those via email before the meeting. Miley, do you have any additional?
I do have one public comment.
Okay.
Okay, this comment is from Laura Boros. Dear Honorable Commissioners, I am a resident of San Clemente and frequent our local beaches to surf, meditate, and exercise for my mental health. I work for a nonprofit organization called Groundswell Community Project that provides surf therapy for women affected by trauma through beach and ocean programs. Our programs are evidence-based, facilitated by licensed LMFT therapists and water safety leads, using practices drawn from somatic, art, and wilderness therapies, as well as mindfulness, community, and positive psychology approaches. We would like to propose the development of a new permit option for the use of city beaches, a mental health access permit, following in the footsteps of other Californian cities such as Pacifica, which currently developed an equal access permit. We have been requested by residents of San Clemente to start a program here to help support the mental well-being of the community. However, we have been limited by the current beach permitting options available. We are not a surf school. We do not teach surfing. We support women to use surfing as a therapeutic practice and do not profit from any of our programs, as all are donation-based, with over half of the participants on scholarship or sliding scale payment plans. Our traditional programs run once per week for 2-hour sessions with about 70% of our time on the beach and 30% of the time in the water for groups of up to 10 women. A commercial surf school and recreation permit does not fit our needs, budget, nor our current proposed beach use. San Clemente has a rich history of surfing and leading by example in terms of recreation opportunities and public access to our rich community natural resources. We would like to continue and expand this effort for our residents. Now more than ever, the mental health and well-being of our community has been negatively affected. Nearly half of Americans report the coronavirus crisis is harming their mental health. According to a Kaiser Family Foundation poll, a federal emergency hotline for people in emotional distress registered more than 1,000% increase in April 2020 compared with the same time last year. Last month, roughly 20,000 people texted that hotline, run by the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. We believe that surf therapy offers an opportunity to develop cost-effective and sustainable ways of increasing our positive mental well-being as a community. We all know and appreciate the benefits that being on, near, or around the ocean has for our mind and body. This is why many of us live here. As an organization, we would like to increase the safe and skilled access to these resources for our community. Our programs focus on creating access to the beach by teaching women how to safely navigate the ocean and to overcome social barriers that have often viewed surfing as a traditionally white male-dominated space. We enable more equitable public access, and that's 3 minutes.
Thank you, Miley. Okay, public input is closed. Communications, item 7. Samantha, you have a report?
I do. I'll be very brief, but commissioners, I do want to share with you on the site-specific master plan update. We are currently working with SWA. This is the consultant that the commission reviewed, approved, and we now have a contract in place with them. We will be kicking off 2 community workshops. We are doing 5 parks, and in order to get the best community involvement, they will be via Zoom, and we will do them over 2 days in order to be sure that we can hit all of the necessary components of those 5 parks. There'll be a press release and several different media things that go out on this, but I do want to share. The first session is going to cover Bonita Canyon, Linda Lane, and San Luis Rey, and that will be Tuesday, May 11th from 5 to 8 p.m. These are open to all the community members. And commissioners, you are also welcome to attend and encouraged to do so, but I don't need the commission in any formal capacity. The second session will comprise of San Gregorio and Steed Park, and that will be held on Thursday, May 13th from 5 to 8 p.m. again as well. Zoom information will be available. It will include the consultant going through general constraints of the park sites, opportunities for development specifically, and then there'll be some breakout groups that will go into staff-led and kind of groups of 8 to 10 residents, depending on the size of turnout as well. Ahead of that, also, please look out for a community needs assessment survey that will also look at existing amenities within those 5 parks. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but this is really good news. This is a long time coming, and we're really excited. The consultant's really excited, has done a ton of surveying already, and they're local and they use these parks also. So my other comment, I want to make sure this commission is aware that the city council has extended all of your terms again until August 30th of 2021. The council is seeking to review the commission and committee structures, and they have asked that the Beaches, Parks and Recreation Commission, along with several other committees, terms get extended until that can be finalized. And that's all I have for you.
All right, thank you, Samantha. Okay, John Dory, water quality.
Well, as we heard from Cynthia, that has been pushed off, and it looks like it'll be June, July. It's hard to say. We were supposed to have it done 6 months ago, so you got photobombed. So at this particular point in time, it's just we're just waiting for our next meeting to occur, and then I'll report back with anything concrete. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Okay, we have no subcommittees. John, friends?
We are not going to have our San Clemente Sports Wall of Fame ceremonies this year. We had to make a decision on it a couple of months ago, just because it takes a long time to get everything all laid out. And we weren't sure what was happening with the pandemic, even though it is improving. So we're going to do that next year. So that's 2 years without a Sports Wall of Fame ceremony, but it'll be magnificent when it occurs in 2022. We also have a golf tournament coming up on June 25th. That's Friday. And I want everybody to go to our website, call us on our phone number, leave a message if you're not getting what you need out of the website, which is always, which we're working on diligently to bring it current. And but we need people. And so the more people we can get on there, the better we're going to be able to serve the community. So that's the big one. And then I think it's October 7th through 7th, 8th, 9th, through the 10th. We're having the carnival this year, and that'll be exciting. And I think people are pinned up. I think they want to get out, and that'll be a great opportunity for the community.
Thank you, John.
Okay, Courtney's, we met last week online, and really didn't anything coming out of it, but Pier Pride, a lot going on. Lights are, we did the restroom out there and got that thing going, and the lights are up around the pier, and I guess we're missing a couple of people from the city works or something, or is kind of holding up things. So getting the lights on, they're looking at October again for lighting up the pier. But then the big fundraiser now is to it involves the Snack Shack, and we're having a virtual online auction that, of course, hopefully all of you you'll get all sorts of information. It's going to, you can pre-register on, I think, May 12th, but the auction will go up on May 19th to the 25th. There's going to be a lot of good items being auctioned. You can go on there and sign up and make your bid. And if somebody comes along and outbids you, you can go back and rebid, etc. And if any of you have anything that you would like to donate for our auction, please do. I was thinking Steve could donate an hour of legal time or whatever, or mowing somebody's grass. I don't know. Okay, but anyway, that's coming up, and that should be enough to fund a complete remodel of the Snack Shack, at least from the outside.
Thank you, John. All right. Anybody have anything else?
No.
All right. Well, then we are adjourned till Tuesday, June 8th,
Yay.
2021 at 6 p.m. All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Bye.
Hi, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.